This is things I wish I could say in Sunday school. I want to share some thoughts and ideas that are different than what we usually hear. My goal is to be really honest rather than inherently faith-promoting. I hope these ideas may spark some interesting discussions with your friends, families, or classes. Please enjoy. This is the lesson for January 19th through 25th, Genesis chapters 3 through 4, and Moses chapters 4 and 5. Today's topics are the fall was a choice, Adam presiding, nudity, and am I my brother's keeper? The main topic of this week is the fall. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints considers the fall of Adam and Eve as one of the key moments in the plan of salvation. It goes the creation, the fall, Christ's atonement, then some might include Christ's second coming, and lastly, judgment. The fall is a major plot point. I don't love the term fall because it heavily implies Eve's choice was a mistake when that's not true, but I don't have a better term either. The story of the fall is interesting. The whole point is that experiencing mortal life was a choice. I've been thinking about that this week. I can see the strength in Eve asserting her choice to partake of the fruit. Part of the fall is that all of God's children choose for themselves to experience mortal life, knowing that along the path of progression there will be suffering. It wasn't forced upon us by our heavenly parents. My life is pretty good. The joy consistently outweighs the suffering. So if I'm just looking at my own life, it can make sense. But there are plenty of people out there where the suffering outweighs the joy. People with chronic diseases, disabilities, extreme poverty, abusive families, etc. That's much harder to reconcile. That's why I now have my randomization theory, that the life we are born into is randomized, not chosen by us nor our heavenly parents. Anyway, the lesson that I try to learn from the story of the fall now is that I want to be brave like Eve in asserting my choices. I don't want to be like Adam, pretending like he doesn't have choices, then acting like the choice he made was forced upon him. It's weak and it's not honest. It was really wise of Eve to recognize that the value of progression was going to be worth the suffering and work. Whereas Adam would look beyond the surface of the basic commandment and see the real lesson behind the commandment. I want to have the wisdom to know when the system I'm in is broken and wrong, and the right choice for me is to break or buck the system. I want to be brave like Eve in making right but hard choices. The manual brings up the topic of Adam ruling over Eve. I'll read Genesis chapter 3, verse 16. Unto the woman he said, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow and thy conception. In sorrow thou shalt bring forth children, and thy desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee. Then the manual goes on about how the church teaches that husbands and wives are equal partners. I believe in equal partnership, and there is one sentence about that in the Family Proclamation. However, I think it's dishonest for the manual to claim that the church teaches equal partnership between spouses. Almost everything the church does puts men above women and has done this for generations. There is the obvious church structures where the leaders are all men, women serve, but the men lead. Even all our church membership directories. Families are organized with men at the top. Wives are listed below husbands. Men are considered heads of household. My wife didn't change her last name when we got married. She is not found in the alphabetical listing in the directory under her own last name. She is listed under my last name. So I call BS that the church teaches equal partnership. Men ruling over women in the church is woven into almost all aspects of our church experience. It's in the local ward leadership structures, it's in how activities are organized, it's in the temple, it's everywhere all the time. The church clearly teaches that men preside over women and children. It's a wrong teaching, but it's dishonest to claim that the church primarily teaches equal partnership. It doesn't. The manual brings up Adam and Eve becoming aware of their nakedness and then covering up. The manual uses this to bring up temple garments. But I think there are better things to discuss, like the shame around the naked body. In the story, after Adam and Eve eat the fruit, their eyes are opened and they realize they are naked. When they heard the voice of God, they hid themselves. God asks why, and Adam replied that he was afraid because he was naked. God was not bothered by their naked bodies. Otherwise, they would have been clothed in the garden immediately after being created. God did not care that they were naked in the garden. In the temple depiction of the story, Satan is the one that tells Adam and Eve that they are naked and they should hide from God. The idea of shame around the naked body came from Satan. I've heard a lot of people say that the body shame was natural and normal. Adam and Eve were like children in the garden, so they didn't care about nudity, just like little children. Then after eating the fruit, their innocence is gone, so the normal body shame enters the picture. I don't believe any of that. We do observe babies and little children often enjoy being naked. Then as they get older, they don't want to be seen naked. But I think that's because they learn body shame from others. I don't believe it's natural. Kids who grew up in homes with nudist parents often don't ever feel the need to hide their bodies. Or if they do, it usually starts around puberty. Body shame is learned, and kids usually learn it by observing their parents and older siblings. There is nothing inherently wrong with a naked body. Clothing performs a lot of important functions too. Clothing can keep us warm, protect us from the sun and the elements. Clothing helps us a lot with hygiene and disease prevention. I do believe in teaching children the real reasons that clothing is important, and it's not covering up our shame. We do tend to sexualize naked bodies. We see it all the time in media, movies, TV, ads, etc. That is all designed to solicit a specific kind of response in people. When I was 22, I spent a couple months in Spain. All the beaches there are topless. When you go, the first minutes feel weird and uncomfortable. You don't know where you should be looking, and you wonder if your behavior is appropriate. But after some minutes, it stops feeling uncomfortable. Your anxiety in the situation dissipates. It starts to feel normal, and then you just enjoy your time at the beach like you would normally. I feel like I had to unlearn body shame as an adult. It didn't feel good to me, and getting rid of that shame was part of my personal progression. I was very uncomfortable in my own body in a lot of ways. That's not a good or healthy way for anyone to live their life. Now I'm really happy that I haven't taught body shame to my own kids. I can see how much more comfortable they are in their own skin than I was at their ages. It's beautiful to see. The manual skips the story of Cain and Abel entirely. I don't understand why, since it's kind of a big story. There are a couple of good topics to discuss. Sacrifice and what makes a sacrifice worthy. But I think the story of Cain and Abel makes church leaders uncomfortable. It has murder, but I think the real reasoning is that the church used the curse of Cain to justify its racist policies against Black people. They don't have to make up reasons why it's okay that the church did that if they just skip over the story entirely. But I want to discuss the topic, am I my brother's keeper? My answer to the question is partially. In a nutshell, you are accountable for your behavior regarding others. But if they are an adult, you aren't responsible for them. I've heard people express ideas that veer too far on both directions. People that feel too responsible for others when it's not theirs to take on. Also people who don't take responsibility for their own behavior towards others. They always have excuses for themselves. They deflect and blame others. I believe our integrity demands some level of care towards all others we are around, but it varies widely. A stranger in your vicinity deserves basic human decency, while a loved one in your home deserves a much greater degree of care. But the bottom line is that you are responsible for how you treat others. You are your brother's keeper, up to a point. We are all human beings in a community together. There is some basic care due to everyone else. But you also have a responsibility to yourself and your family, and we all have limited time and energy. And you have to respect your brother's agency to make his own choices. So it's all a balancing act, and I believe we should be striving for middle ground while expanding our comfort zones for caring for others. For example, it's easy for me to keep to myself and not reach out with loving care towards others. That's why I mention expanding our comfort zones. I personally need to expand myself in that way, and I'm sure many others do too. Anyway, that's what I think about when I consider the question, am I my brother's keeper? That's it for this week. Thanks for listening. Please share with family and friends. Until next time.